An ongoing conflict between the government and separatists in the predominantly English-speaking northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon has killed more than 2,000 people. More than 200 villages have been completely or partially burned. More than 500,000 people have been internally displaced, and about 50,000 people have become refugees. For more on the crises and how people of faith in the United States can help end it, we welcome Terrence Wakai, a native of Cameroon, who has been involved in community organizing and advocacy for over 2 decades and is currently an Illinois organizer with the Global Initiative to End Cameroon's Colonial Conflict. Tell me the origins of this conflict.
The origins of this conflict basically goes back to the failed decolonization process that was engaged in the southern Cameroons. The southern Cameroon, so what is today known as the Anglophone regions, was a United Nations Trust territories. And according to the United Nations Charter, all trust territories were supposed to be developed into independence or self-government. In the case of the southern Cameroons, or what is today known as the Anglophone regions, when the time for independence came around, they were given an option to gain independence by either joining Nigeria or Cameroon. And in this case, they chose to join French Cameroon.
How is that region different from the rest of Cameroon, and what do the people there want?
The Anglophone region, as the name implies, is English-speaking. It was a League of Nations mandate under the British. It was a trust territory under the British, as opposed to the rest of Cameroon, which was a French mandate under the French and a trust territory under the French. So we have cultural, political, and legal systems which we inherited from the British, as opposed to the other part of Cameroon, or French Cameroon, which has cultural, educational, and legal systems which they inherited from the French. So that has been the main point of conflict between the two parties.
When was the last time that you were there? And what did you see when you were there?
The last time I was there was in 2014. At that point, the conflict had not erupted to what we know today. But there have always been historical tensions between the English-speaking Cameroon and the French-speaking Cameroon.
Tell me what brought you to the United States.
I came to the United States as a student, so basically education, to further my education. So after high school, I was admitted to the University of Illinois here at Chicago, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, you've been here ever since. Do you want to go back, or why haven't you returned?
Ideally, I want to go back, but as we know, the security situation is not the best. I'm currently married. I have a family. My children are American, so I don't know how they will adapt at this stage. If I say let's pack up our bags and go, but I, like most immigrants, always have this dream of going back one day to the motherland.
Tell me how the churches in the United States are connected to the Cameroon.
I am a Presbyterian, and that's as far as I know. I went to a Presbyterian school, and the churches in the United States used to send missionaries, to come and teach us in secondary school. And there are relationships between the moderation of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon, the PCC, and Presbyterian churches in the United States, particularly the Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Chicago. One of the teachers who taught the school that I went to, I think his name is Mr. Tom Rook, was from the Fourth Presbyterian Church here in Chicago. What
can we do here in the United States to help end the violence there?
Well, my response is informed by what has happened in other parts of the world. Myanmar, for example. During the conflict in Myanmar against the Rohingya Muslims, once there was an international fact-finding mission mandated by the United Nations, the killings stopped. Our hope is that the same thing will happen in the conflict in Cameroon. So what we are asking for Christians here to do is basically call your state representatives or your local representatives, have them contact the United States Department of State, have them contact the United States Ambassador to the UN, and make the case, make the plea for them to call for the United States to use its moral authority to call for an international fact-finding mission in Cameroon. It will have the immediate effect, if history is any guide, to stop the killing immediately.
Okay, and what message would you share from your brothers and sisters in the Cameroon with us Christians here in Chicago?
Well, the message I want to share with them is that they should keep hope. When I read, before coming here, I read the last message that the moderator of the Presbyterian Church, Reverend Funky, sent out. And it was a plea to save lives. It was a plea to stop killing God's children. And all I have for them is to listen to their moderator, be hopeful, continue praying for them, and that those of us here in the United States have them in our hearts and we're praying for them.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we know as a people, what you want?
Well, what I want you guys to understand is that Cameroon is in a very difficult place. The people are in a very difficult place. I think they call the church the flock of God, And what I also want them to understand about what is happening in Cameroon is the political context, the environment. In Cameroon, we have a president who's been there for 38 years. So it gives you an idea of the type of environment under which the people and all civic organizations, including the church, operate under. And I think that's one of the primary reasons why we have this carnage going on. And we're hoping that with your prayers, with some advocacy through you members of Congress, we can bring an end to this conflict as soon as possible. And most importantly, is to save lives, And I think the best way of doing that, given the historical guide that I just alluded to, is to have an international fact-finding mission sent to Cameroon so that the killing can stop immediately. That's my hope and that's my prayer.
Thank you. We will be praying with you. I appreciate you for sharing your story. And you've taught me a whole bunch today, so I thank you so much.
Thank you, Reverend Taylor. Thank you guys for having me.
I am Jasmine Taylor for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.